explore mental wellness, growth, and the human experience. I want to thank everybody for coming and listening to the podcast today. I greatly appreciate all of you. So, this is actually going to be the second episode on grief, and we're calling this the messy middle. Grief is often spoken about in two ways: the moment of loss and the moment you're quote unquote better. But what about all those days in between? The messy middle is that long stretch after the funeral ends, after people stop checking in as often as they were doing. It's when the world moves on, but you haven't. It's when you're smiling and laughing and feel guilty at the same time. It's when you cry in the grocery store for no reason. It's when you start to live again, but still feel broken. This space can be full of contradictions. You can feel hopeful one minute and crushed the next. You can feel numb and overwhelmed all in the same day. That is grief in a nutshell. And this is the messy middle. I talk to everybody about making sure that they are aware of what is triggering them. I talk about how you can be anywhere in a grocery store. You might see something that you bought your loved one for a snack, and that could trigger you. You could hear a song. It could just be a nice, beautiful day, and that could be triggering. Grief doesn't wear a name tag. It usually sneaks up on you when you're not expecting it. Maybe it might be that empty chair at the table. Usually the first, like holidays, those are always extremely difficult because you had those traditions that you had with your loved one, and now you have to figure out whether you change those traditions or where you go from there. Some of the things that people talk about grief, they think that you're supposed to be sad. That links you to that grief, but really it's not just all about that sadness. It's about irritability. For me and for other individuals, I know grief can be exhausting. You can have brain fog. You can forget what you're doing. You can get angry. That's a big one too, because when you don't know how to express your emotions correctly, the next biggest emotion sitting right there is anger. Sometimes you don't even connect any of those emotions to the loss. You feel that it's coming from somewhere else. A lot of times when I have somebody that passes away, their loved ones in the very beginning at least forget to eat and forget to sleep. Sometimes you don't want to sleep. Sometimes that grief looks like throwing yourself into your work and staying quote unquote busy. Well, I do tell everybody to make sure that you are doing things during the day, but you don't want to do too many things because then you are blocking the grief process that you need to go through. There's a lot of myths or lies that makes that messy middle harder for individuals. And every time I tell people, they have to understand that grief is how fast or how slow they make it. Not one person can tell you how fast to go, that you should be over it, because they're not in your shoes. They might have had a similar situation with grief, but no one is going through the type of grief that you are going through. A lot of times people say that, time heals all wounds. Time helps, yes, but with grief, it's not going away. It just changes its shape. You learn to live with it. People say that, you should be over it by now. It's 5 years today that my father passed, and I'm not quote unquote over it. It feels just as raw as it did 5 years ago. So a lot of times those people that say that didn't have that significant relationship that you might have had with your loved one. So they can't really judge you on how fast or how slow that you can go because the relationship was different. One of the other things too that I hear people say that you need to be strong for other people. Well, that's true. However, you need to have those crying moments, those breaking down moments, that's strength too. That shows that you're healing. And you need to go through those. You can't allow those to just sit on the back burner because they will come out eventually. But a lot of times, if you let it sit there, it's going to come out more in anger than anything else. Think of grief like a scar. The wound may close, but that mark is still there. You can see it every day, and it's a reminder. And some days, it aches more than others. So living with grief means letting go of the pressure to be okay all the time. You're not going to be okay all the time. I'm sure you know that wholeheartedly. If you're listening to this, that you probably went through some kind of grief and it just didn't go away after 2 weeks. You also have to make space for the good times and the sorrow as well. They're kind of like partners now. Okay. You have to let that grief walk beside you, but we're not allowing it to consume you. Right. I've said time and time again with individuals that I talk to that your loved one wouldn't want you to give up. They would want you to have that joy that you had. It's going to be a different type of joy. It's like joy with an asterisk. Okay. But they would still want you to be happy in some kind of capacity. So let's use that motivation that they wouldn't want you to be like that and be happy. We just have to find out how. Let's use some gentle tools that might help you during the day to kind of make sure that you're being, as okay as you can be. Do a morning check-in. Ask yourself, how are you feeling today? Maybe name your emotion. Make it present. When you name something, you're making it front and center, right? You're not giving it that control, you're taking it back. A lot of times when grief kicks in, a lot of anxiety kicks in as well. So maybe doing some breath work, take some deep breaths, tap yourself out. If you're feeling overwhelmed, whatever the circumstance is, realize where you're at and take yourself out of the equation. Maybe let people in a little bit. Not everybody, but somebody. It's always nice to have somebody you can talk to about these things, and you don't have to open up completely. Talking about it might actually help the person you're talking to open up about grief that they might be sitting on a shelf somewhere. And then they can relate in some way, and then there goes the conversation. I know some mornings it feels like you've woken up with weight strapped to your chest. The world asks you to keep going, to go to work, pay bills, feed the dog, show up, smile. And under your shirt, you're carrying that loss. Maybe it's the loss of a person. Maybe it's the loss of what could have been, maybe a future, maybe the version of yourself. That's why it's called the messy middle. I just want to take a second here and pause and say this to you. If no one else has told you today, you're doing better than you think. You're carrying that heavy weight and still waking up and still breathing. All of that matters. When you lose someone so close to you, it really changes your identity. It just doesn't take the people you love, it reshapes us. Maybe you used to be the strong one, the planner, the fixer in the family. Maybe you feel tired and foggy all the time. And that can be normal. Grief can alter your inner world. You no longer are that same person. And maybe you shouldn't be. That loss changes your identity, your priorities, even your relationship with other people. We all know sometimes friends drift away after that loss. Sometimes people say the wrong things or say nothing at all. A lot of times people don't know what to say. A lot of times people are afraid that they're going to say something and trigger you. So now you're sitting here asking yourself, who am I now without them? Who am I now that this chapter of our lives is over? Honestly, these questions don't have easy answers, but asking them is part of the healing. It's part of the new becoming. You're not going backwards, you're becoming a new version of yourself, shaped but not defined by your grief. I tell everybody this is the newest version of you that you've ever been. We have to mold it in a positive light while also remembering the memories from our loved one. We're going to use that as motivation moving forward. This new version of you might feel like betrayal at first. You might laugh a little too hard. You might start dreaming. And for a brief moment, you remember who you used to be and who you're becoming. That joy, it's not forgetting, it's not moving on, it's permission to keep living. Maybe joy looks like a walk outside. Maybe it's a memory that makes you smile instead of crying this time. I call those glimmers. Even if you do cry, it's those happy moments that make you cry and go, you know what? I knew that was you. Those are glimmers. Write that down. Maybe it's simply making your bed, calling a friend. A small joy says, I'm still here. I'm still trying. And you are. I know you are. You are still here. And I'm so proud of you for trying each and every day. I know grief sucks. It does. But you have to remember that we don't want the grief to actually go away because that grief is just the love for your individual that is not present, but is still here in one way or another. And that grief will circle back to connect those memories. And that's what we're holding on to, those memories, those happy moments. And I'm sure there's plenty of them. That's when you're going to get those glimmers. Now, with that being said, you need to go at your own pace. You are not doing this at somebody else's speed because they don't know what you're going through. And that's okay too. It's all about how fast or how slow you need to go. But in order to go through it, you have to go through the process. The only way out is through. And it might take baby steps, and that's okay too. You might fall. I'm sure you will. Well, we're going to fall forward. And then we're going to get back up. And then we're going to do it again. That's why it's waves. That wave knocks you down, you get back up. I know that there are so many people struggling with this on a day-to-day basis. I'm one of those people, but I promise you there is hope. I promise you that you will find a stronger version of you at the end of this. You will find a purpose. You will use this tragic event to help other people in some way. But it's on your time. So to everyone living in this messy middle, remember you're not broken. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're grieving, and grieving is a form of endurance. It's brave, it's exhausting. Your grief may never leave you completely, but it will shift. It will soften. And one day you'll look back and realize you carried it. You made room for both sorrow and joy, and you did not disappear. Just remember you're not alone. I wanted to share a couple of quotes real quick. One was from C.S. Lewis. It states, "The pain I feel now is the happiness I had before." That's the deal. The greater the love, the deeper the grief. So that goes back to when I was talking about how people say you need to be done after 2 weeks. You should be good. They're in a better place. All kinds of things. Again, your love for that person that passed does not completely mirror someone else's grief. So it's going to take time. Also goes on to say that there's real gratitude in reaching for your loved one's voice, even when you don't retrieve it, because you're reaching for them nonetheless. It reminds you that you losing a person over and over, but by losing them, you get to return to the site of their living that you can recall And that's celebratory. Those are those glimmers. We don't just grieve because we've lost. We grieve because we remember. And in that remembering, there's something to hold on to. I have used the deaths of quite a few people in my life to get to this point. I don't want the reminder of my life to have lost meaning because my loved ones have passed. I want to show the world that my life has more meaning than ever before because they were actually in it. They projected me to be in this position. And I am so ever grateful for the things that I have learned and taken from them. And I continue to pass that on to people that I talk to every day. You will find your purpose again. You will find another meaning of life. But it's going to take time. Be easy on yourself. There's no time frame for grief. As you continue walking through your grief, remember you don't have to have it all figured out. Just take the next step. Rest when you need to, cry when you need to, laugh when it comes. Remember, you are still here. And that's more than enough. Grief doesn't mean you stopped living, it means you've loved deeply. In the messy middle where the days blur and the aches lingers, know this, you're not alone. Your story, your sorrow, your strength, they matter. Be gentle with yourself. Your heart is doing holy work. So as I close out this podcast for today, I want to just thank everybody for listening. I know this would be a little bit of a difficult episode for me and for you, as again, this was my 5-year anniversary of my dad passing. So, this one was for him. And we're all going to make it through. But again, it's going to take some time. So on that note, as always, when I leave you with this. Stay grounded. Stay kind to yourself. And remember, strength begins with honesty. Until next time.